let's briefly wrap up the remaining 6 games that took place in match day 31. As you know by now, the format of the Bundesliga is that there's a game on the Friday, or the Freitag, one game on the Friday, a bunch of games on Saturday, and then including a Topspiel game, and then there's the 2 or 3 games that usually take place on the Sunday. The Freitag, or Friday game, was Stuttgart at home to Frank Schmidt's Heidenheim, who were desperate for the points. I won't go into the lineups too much. Let's just focus on the result. This, by the way, was a shock. In that, I don't think that Sebastian Hoeneß or Frank Schmidt had Heidenheim down as winning 1-0. It was a late goal. It was a fantastic goal as well by Matthias Hontag. Please go and check that one out on YouTube. Ask Jeeves, or ask a friend to try and recreate it with jumpers for goalposts in the park. Yeah, it was a fantastic volley. Worth winning any game, by the way. Yeah, so Heidenheim won that one 1-0 away. Wolfsburg under Ralph Hasenhüttl, but for how much longer? Because that's now in their last 7 games. That's 5 losses and 2 draws, so things aren't going particularly well. A lot of infighting as well between Big Ralph, the Austrian, and players such as Kevin Behrens. They had that little fallout, didn't they, over that rainbow kit that Mr. Behrens refused to sign. Well, they lost 1-0 away to Freiburg. Freiburg, who, as we know from looking at the table, and we'll do that sync up at the end, are still in contention for a European place next season. Julian Schuster will be desperate for Champions League. They could end up with Europa League. Our money is that they'll fall down and actually end up in the Conference League in 7th. But anyway, it was an away win. I suppose the red card for Maxi Arnold, that's a Wolfsburg side who are pretty aggressive. Yeah, I can tell you exactly how aggressive they are if you bear with me. Here we go, look. Very ill-disciplined Wolfsburg. 75 yellow cards and 3 reds. That's over 31 games so far this season. Yeah, 75 yellow cards, 3 reds. Just so you... Well, you might or may not be interested, but Augsburg is second in that ill-discipline list. They've got 73 yellows and 4 reds. Actually, the worst offenders for red cards, just now we'll go down a complete rabbit hole, are Dortmund. 6 red cards this season. And the third for yellow cards in that list is Union Berlin with 70. The Golden Boys, if you want to call them that, is St. Pauli, which sounds very biblical, doesn't it? It sounds very religious. St. Pauli. They've only got 45 yellows, but they've got 4 reds. So maybe not quite the angelic team that you thought they were. Anyway, that red card feels like it made a bit of a difference. Max Rosenfelder scored what turned out to be the winner on the 49th minute. Again, that's putting Ralph Hasenhüttl in the Scheiße. And then there was this fantastic, whoa, lots of goals coming in from all angles. HOLSTEIN KIEL, I mean, they are fighting to stay in the Bundesliga. You know, they've been bottom or 18th for a long time. Currently up into 17th. This was a seesaw of a game. Look at this. 2-0 up, which again in itself is a shock because, you know, Monchengladbach, I mean, this is a team that in a bygone area, especially in the 70s, were rinsing the Bundesliga with titles. They were doing extremely well in Europe as well. They were 2-0 down to Kiel. Goals from the Japanese striker Shuto Mishino and Alexander Berhardsen, the Swede. 2-0 after 23 minutes. Thomas Svankara, at least that's how we pronounce it, the Czechia attacking midfielder. And then the Frenchman, the old-timer Alassane Playi. Those 2 individuals for Gladbach brought it back to 2-2. The Bosnian and Herzegovinian international Arman Djigovic, we've called him out as one to watch in the past, he put Kiel 3-2 up. Big Frank Honrahat, the winger, he then comes up with a goal in the 86th minute to make it 3-3. And just when you thought that game was finished, Shuto Mishino scored in the 91st minute to win the game 4-3 for Holstein Kiel, and that, as you'll see from looking at the table, by the way, is only their 5th win of the season. 4 wins at home because they've only won once away, and that was a historic win over Union Berlin. But yeah, 4-3, 7-goal thriller. Not the 8-goal thriller that Union Berlin and Stuttgart played out just a few weeks back, with all 8 goals coming in the first half. 7 different scorers as well, if you were keeping tabs on that particular game. And then Frankfurt, well, they scored 4 as well. They absolutely smashed Leipzig, which is, didn't see that one coming, because again, both of these teams are pushing for Champions League. Frankfurt, well, they're still, it felt like they were hurting and they had a point to prove, because 2 weeks prior they'd been knocked out, however you want to call it. They're out of the Europa League at the hands of Jack's Tottenham. Jack, part of the Taffman 10 community and one of our regular watchers of our streams. And by the way, on that note, you can join our Discord and watch his live stream Werder Bremen in Football Manager 24. Yeah, links all in the description to that save. We're calling it Brainless in Bremen, which is very appropriate. Anyway, Leipzig also pushing for Champions League. Salt Löw, the temporary caretaker manager, he'll be hoping that they can finish in the Champions League spots, because he might get that job full time. Rumours are still swirling as to who's going to come in and be the full-time manager of Leipzig next season. I saw that Manu and Stefan from the Gegenpressing pod put forward Philip Glasner, who's currently the manager of Crystal Palace, who were in the FA Cup final against Manchester City come the end of the Premier League season in the UK. Philip Glasner, also Austrian, previously managed and played for, you probably won't be able to see it, but SVR Rieder. I went to watch that game, which is where I got that scarf and shirt from last August. He's supposed to be coming in. The other name we've seen is Thierry Henry, which completely blew my mind, because I thought he was comfortable being a pundit. And of course, thank you, Gonzo, ex-Arsenal midfielder and all-round icon and current Como manager, Cesc Fabregas. So they're the 3 contenders for the permanent job for Leipzig going into next season. Anyway, Champions League looks like it's further and further away, having been smashed 4-0 by Frankfurt. Again, Frankfurt, we feel, had a point to prove, because they want to end the season under Dino Topmuller on a high. They went 1-0 up very early on, a brace actually in the end from Ansgar KNAUFF. Now he's been on Liverpool's radar. 23 million euro apparently is the target price, or the asking price. Is it asking price? Or the price that's been put down anyway from Liverpool, who did, again, clap it in for Taffman. Clap it in for all you Liverpool fans out there, including Terry Streeter. Thank you, Terry, for dropping into a recent stream. Yes, Liverpool are indeed the champions in the Premier League currently, although they haven't managed to make any progress on the European front because they were beaten by PSG. And of course, Arsenal got to play PSG in the semi-finals of the Champions League. Back to this game, Ansgar KNAUFF scored after 21 minutes. He made it 2-0. That was after a red card for Bichibashu, as we call him. One of Marco Rose's signings, I might add, as well, for Leipzig. Yeah, straight red card in the 50th minute. Ansgar KNAUFF scores the second of his brace. Hugo EKITIKE gets in the goals. Again, that's his 15th for the season, maybe his 16th. And then the defender, Robin Koch, he puts a bow on it on the 71st minute, and Frankfurt win that game 4-0. Bochum also scrapping for their lives down at the bottom against Union Berlin, as we know, under Stefan Baumgart, have become street fighters in their own right. Benedict Hollerbach in a starting berth, which has been unusual because he's been used by Baumgart as a sub frequently this season. Benedict Hollerbach with his 9th goal this season on 17 minutes put Union Berlin 1-0 up. And then Frederick Ranau, the keeper for Berlin, who was probably looking for his 10th clean sheet, of the season. Well, that was dismissed by Matthias Beiru, the midfielder for Bochum, who scored on the 68th minute for a valuable Bochum point. In fact, if you put that game into context, it was a game that if Bochum would have lost, they'd have gone down, basically. They would have been out of reach of the 16th place, which is the playoff relegation game where you play the 3rd place team in the Zweite Bundesliga, which is currently Magdeburg. So it was Bochum couldn't afford to lose. Rise knew that, and it was quite cute actually that Rise from Rise Football Paradise was in the crowd, and the cameras from Sky, which is who we get our feed from as a stream in the UK, the cameras kept cutting to him, which was absolutely fantastic. It wasn't a win, but it wasn't a loss either, so it keeps Bochum's survival chances going for another game. That game finished 1-1. And then to wrap things up, Werder Bremen, who, again, under Oli Werner, have been a formed team of late, having won, 4 out of their last 5. This was, was it surprising? Maybe it wasn't surprising, because against St. Pauli, they don't score, but they don't concede many either. They're pretty miserly at St. Pauli. And then Werder, was Ollie Burke in that lineup? No, he must have come off the bench. Ollie Burke, by the way, he's not having his contract renewed at the end of the season, so rumours are he's going to join Union Berlin. They had mighty Marvin Dusk and Justin Neymar starting up front. Again, I know this team reasonably well because we're managing them on Football Manager FM24. This game ended 0-0, and the only bit of drama that I can really see here was a second yellow, so a red card for Australian Connor Metcalf. The impact on the table is this. If we look all over we go from the bottom up, that point for Bochum again sort of keeps them alive for another week. So they're going into match day 32 with an absolute, they cannot afford to lose. In fact, they have to get a win effectively to keep them within the chance of making that, hitting the 16th place, which is currently being occupied by Frank Schmidt's Heidenheim. HOLSTEIN KIEL, last-minute drama with a 4-3 win over Gladbach. That puts them on 22 points, so they're 3 points shy of Frank Schmidt's Heidenheim. There is a 5-point gap, as we've already talked about, between Heidenheim and Hoffenheim. The Heims sounds like a Swedish, or I suppose an East German tribute band for the Swedish Hives. Hate to say I told you so. All right. Don't think we can get done for really poor taste and a poorly interpretation of one of the Sweden's best outputs in quite a few years. Union Berlin safe as a hut in the forest. Wolfsburg, they're continuing to slide, although they've not really moved any position according to the table. It is now, 5 losses out of 7 for Ralph Hasenhüttl. It feels like the chop is coming. It's just a matter of when. Stuttgart, they've got that final DFB Pokal to play against Zweite or Liga 3 side Arminia Bielefeld. No movement for the rest, and then we've covered the top 6, which is a Dortmund team that, along with Bremen, one of the form teams at the minute, arguably along with Munich. I guess that's the sort of 4 teams or 3 teams in form at present. There's a scrap going on for the European places as we head in to match day 32. Super exciting, it really is. We can't wait to see how this one plays out.